Jews were expelled from Spain on August 2nd, 1492, and from Portugal in 1497. Many of these Jews immigrated to Holland, where they set up the Dutch West Indies Company to exploit the New World. In 1654, the first Jew, Jacob Bar Simpson, immigrated from Holland to New Amsterdam, New York. And in the next decade, many more followed him, settling along the East Coast, principally in New Amsterdam and Newport, Rhode Island. They were prevented by ordinances issued by Governor Peter Stuyvesant from engaging in the domestic economy. It is essential to comprehend the seaport of Newport. It is important in order to recognize the Jewish share in the slave commerce. There was a period when it was commonly referred to as, quote, the Jewish Newport World Center of Slave Commerce. Altogether at this time, there were in North America 6 Jewish communities: Newport, Charleston, New York, Philadelphia, Richmond, and Savannah. There were also many other Jews scattered over the entire East Coast. Although New York held first place in the settlers of Jews in North America, Newport held second place. New York was also the main source of kosher meat, supplying the North American settlements, then the West Indies, and also South America. Now Newport took over. Newport also became the great trade harbor of the East Coast of North America. There, vessels from other ports met to exchange commodities. Newport, as previously mentioned, represented the foremost place in the commerce of rum, whiskey, and liquor dealings. And to include, it finally became the main center of slave dealings. It was from this port that the ships left on their way across the ocean to gather their black human cargo and then derive great sums of money in exchange for them. An authentic contemporary report based on authority indicates that of 128 slave ships, for instance, unloaded in Charleston within 1 year, their cargo, 120 of these were undersigned by Jews from Newport and Charleston by their own name.
Feel me? Yeah. Newport time that I kept a rule, I'm in a tap my try never cock him. Hotel. Never high by a new session. I'm in rush. Say my heart is happy. Damn, they rule. Never high by a new session. I'm in rush. That I write for God. Never high by a new session. I'm in rush. They say my heart is happy. And I praise God every day. I'm in rush. A new Tefek, to honor the kept a room I try. I'm in a tef, never cop him, Rena, M. Shenu, Pasa Rod, the Sue Biddy, he too witty, never mentor, kept a rule, suitin' at the rule, to a rasa, Jedi, Madu, Natir, the fair, yeah, Jedi, Ray and Kim, the fair.
Come today. What's your name, my brother, for the viewers that's out there?
I am Commander Gen Yahanna of the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge.
Okay, I heard a lot about you. I've seen a few of your videos as well.
The world heard about the truth.
That's right. That's right. And I noticed how you talk real greasy about the ancient Kemetic people, dealing with the homosexuality, dealing with so much stuff. Well, we not African.
Well, you know what? I speak real greasy about anybody that murders my family, just like you would. Okay. Somebody come and harm your family member, you gonna speak grievous about them too. And Africans murdered us, man. They were a major part of the slave trade. The white man couldn't have gone into the jungles of Africa and brought us out.
There's a kind of notion that you'll hear a lot of people say that, you know, Africans enslaved their own people. And in fact, they didn't. In our imagination today, this is one place inhabited by one race of people. But that wouldn't have made much sense to people at the time. You know, that Africa was and is a dizzyingly diverse continent with literally thousands of distinct ethnic and linguistic groups. And so there's conflict and, you know, and contestation between those groups, and that grows dramatically, that conflict grows dramatically in the course of the centuries of the slave trade.
So yeah, I'm gonna talk real greasy about them. You understand? The problem with us is we think we're them, and we're not. We think we find the greatest African culture like Egypt, one of their great cultures, and then we jump up and down and act like that's us, when we got nothing to do with it. There's not a single so-called African American scholar or teacher of Egyptology that can say that his descendants come from Egypt.
So General Yahanna don't seem to think that no African American student in Egyptology can trace his descendants back to Egypt. Hey, yo, you don't trace your descendants, man. Your descendants come from you. You must be talking about your predecessors or your progenitors. That's what you trace. And when it come down to this Egyptology, let's just try that for a moment. Let's take a look at this Egyptian gene. The Egyptian gene. Although not detected in the royal mummies whose DNA had been examined so far, this autosomal ancestry marker is also clearly African in origin. Today it enjoys the greatest spread in Egyptians. About 1 in 10 Africans or African Americans have it, but a sharp spike occurs in Copts, today's successive population in the land of the Nile, where up to 27% possess it. About 7% of European Americans have it. Tellingly, perhaps, East Coast Indians and Melanesians have it in elevated levels. It is hardly noticeable in Asia, suggesting that it did not form a significant part of the Great Migration of humanity out of Africa about 100,000 years ago, but spread to Eurasian populations primarily from Egypt to the Middle East in historical times. Now see, that was cool. They came up with cool results that 1 in 10 Africans or African Americans had this gene. But they did another search, another study on Ramses III DNA, and come to find out he was E1B1A. And what's that? Let me show you. DNA analysis shows Egyptian pharaoh Ramses III had sub-Saharan African haplogroup E1B1A. Genetic kinship analysis reveals identical haplogroups in both mummies. Using the Wilt-Athe haplogroup predictor, we've determined the Y chromosomal haplogroup E1B1A. The testing of the polymorphic autosomal microsatellite Loki provided similar results in at least one allele of each marker, HYKSOS. And now if you want to take a look at the genetic atlas, what you're going to find out is that E1B1A originates right about in the Horn of Africa. All right now. And if you want to see the percentage of people who got it, it says 80% of Angolans is E1B1A. All right, you want to go down the list, you can see right here. What? African Americans, 55% E1B1A? Oh, no. What that mean? That means 55% of your DNA is the DNA that was running through Pharaoh Ramses III. So if any Egyptian scholar wanted to trace, any African American Egyptian scholar wanted to trace his progenitors or his predecessors back to Egypt, I just did it for him.
There is no doubt in my mind at all that the original ethnic appearance of the Egyptians, or what we call the Egyptians, the original Egyptians, were black Africans.
Scholar or teacher of Egyptology that can say that his descendants come from Egypt. Not one. They will all admit that their history don't come from Egypt, but they'll just say, well, it's black culture, so we should follow it, and we can gain from it, and we can this and we can that. But you know what? Black people always kept it real. Why should we start plagiarizing somebody else's culture? If you don't know who you are, how you gonna take another man's culture and then try to make that culture yours? We're not Africans, we'll never be Africans. Africans are our enemies because they sold us into slavery.
The question of African participation in the slave trade is one of the issues that's sort of most delicate at the time, and today it's apt to be misunderstood. There were people in Africa who participated in the trade and profited handsomely from it. But it's a fairly small number. It would have been very difficult not to participate in the trade. Not only were European traders carrying goods that were very valuable, iron pots, for example, but also things like guns, which could greatly enhance the authority and power of one group of people vis-a-vis its neighbors. And European traders become very adept at trying to foment conflict because they realize that in regions in which there's conflict, the flow of slaves down to coastal ports will increase. So one of the primary trade goods that's being carried on ships is guns. The British in particular export over the course of the transatlantic slave trade, over the course of about a couple centuries, at least 20 million small arms, pistols, guns into West Africa. There's a decade at the peak of the trade in the late 18th century where 1.5 million guns are sent from Britain alone to West Africa. And again, if you didn't participate and your neighbor was acquiring guns, well, then you could find yourself on the next slave ship out.
But isn't it true, Brother General, when the pyramids was being built, there was no such thing as Hebrew Israelites on the planet?
That is a 110% lie.
Show and prove that the Hebrew Israelites existed at that time of Imhotep.
Let me tell you something. Imhotep, all of them were during the time of our people's slavery in Egypt. They turn around and try to say, well, there was no Israelites in Egypt. I've been to Egypt several times. I looked at the archaeology. I looked at the records. Now, I pull out books all day. We'll sit down and take the time and bring out all the records. We was enslaved in Egypt. You're not going to tell me that in the Egyptian records it doesn't say the HYKSOS were there. And you're not going to tell me that it doesn't say that the capital of the HYKSOS was in what you call Cairo today, which was Goshen in the past. They're not going to say that. But of course, like in America, they don't call you by your identity. What do they call us? African Americans or Negroes. They called us shepherd kings back then too. And let me say this.
No, Mr. General Yahanna, I don't want to let you say anything else. It is because you do not know what you're talking about. You're going to sit here and say that during the time of Imhotep, Jews were slaves in Egypt. He asked you to show and prove that. You didn't show and prove that. What you did was mention the HYKSOS. So you equated the Hebrews to the HYKSOS. You just took a stance or a position. Now you can't get out of that stance or that positions. That's you the HYKSOS. Now, you trying to make examples of how HYKSOS were slaves in Egypt, but that's completely untrue. How could you make example of HYKSOS being slaves in Egypt by quoting Cairo as the capital? Slaves don't have a capital. Secondly, you just got through admitting yourself that they called you shepherd kings. Why? This is because the HYKSOS had a dynasty in Egypt. The 15th dynasty of Egypt was the HYKSOS dynasty. Slaves don't have dynasty. Dynasty means a family of rule. This means the HYKSOS were a ruling family in Egypt. So where all the slavery go?
They called us shepherd kings back then too. And let me say this, for all the Egyptian scholars, every Egyptian scholar that pulls out archaeological books on Egypt, when you go to the back of the book and you look at the credits on who the original archaeologists are, they always go back to Manetho. Manetho was the archaeologist that was first commissioned by Ptolemy to bring the records of Egypt out. Those are the foundations of all Egyptian archaeology records. And we found out Manetho was a damn liar. Manetho was a liar. Manetho plagiarized the Egyptian history. Why? Because Ptolemy was building a huge library in Alexandria on all the religions and cultures of the world. So Manetho wanted to get rich off of Ptolemy's money and plagiarized a bunch of lies about our history.
Wow, you must really don't know what you're talking about. Let me show you something, bro. You said Manetho was a liar and that he plagiarized the history of Kemet. Let me ask you a question. How do you plagiarize a history of pharaohs and pyramids and tombs in Egypt? Who else got that? Where you gonna steal that from? What are you talking about? He plagiarized the history of Kemet. Second of all, let me show you why you were a fool for calling him a liar. Because Manetho's works only survive in the works of three people. That's Flavius Josephus, Sextus Julius Africanus, and Eusebius of Caesarea. And of the three, none of them were contemporary with Manetho, yet Flavius Josephus, his book, Against I.S.U.P.K, is the book that he wrote that contains works of Manetho that he discredits in his defense of Judaism. But that ain't your era. Here go your era. The story of the HYKSOS, who you equated yourself to already, only survives through us from Manetho through Josephus. Okay? So if Manetho is a liar, then the story about the HYKSOS is a lie. And you calling yourself a HYKSOS or a shepherd king.
Why does it have Hebrew writings, you understand, all in the Egyptian culture? Why is that? Because they stole it from us while we were in slavery.
Why is there Hebrew writings in Egyptian culture? Well, first of all, Egyptian culture lasts for at least 3,000 years. Okay? And if you really want to think about it, Hebrew writings really didn't enter Egyptian culture. If you want to revert to Jews in Elephantine and write 500 BC, you're going to find out they didn't write in Hebrew. Okay? If you're trying to go back further, you're going to find out that Hebrew wasn't present in Egyptian culture. As a matter of fact, what you will find out is the parent, grandparent language, great-grandparent language to Hebrew, which would be Proto-Sinaitic, with the traces, the inklings of that script, okay, can be found in the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Now, what this would mean is that the beginning, your ABCs, as soon as you began to learn how to write that down, it was based on Egyptian hieroglyphs, okay? We also know that there was a lot of communication between Canaanites and Egyptians.
What do you think your brother Tazariak did going up against Brother Polite when he had, did the debate? How do you think the brother did?
Let me tell you something, man. Any man, my brother Tazariak or any man that I send out to battle with the name of the Most High and the words of the truth, he don't never lose. You know why? Because Christ with him. You understand? You done found a new breed of Hebrews that stand and walk with the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, and we don't care who we got to come up against. You ain't standing before this truth.
Av. Because to say Abba, like he said to say father in Hebrew is Ab, A-B, but that's not how you say father in Hebrew. When you say Abraham in Hebrew, it's not Abraham, it's Abraham.
Strong's H85. Avraham.
It's not Abraham, it's Abraham.
Strong's H85. Avraham.
It's not Abraham, it's Abraham.
Strong's H85. Avraham.
You understand? We done took them all on and gonna continue to take them all on.
They think that you have this hatred for black women.
Right.
When they see you speak, they see how all the Hebrews always talking down on the black woman. What is that? What is that all about, brother?
You know what it is? It's a misunderstanding of love.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna start slow. This might take a second to digest.
Go ahead, go.
So let me start slow. Black people been in America 400 years. Black people been in slavery, 2 million brothers incarcerated in prison, abortion, murder, high blood pressure, AIDS, heart disease, poor food, bad jobs, poverty. Do you know anybody that loved the white man more than us? You understand what I'm saying, brother? Like, he got it. He get the point. Meaning this, don't nobody love the person that abused them more than us. And the reason why we believe that General Yahanna is hard on black women or evil towards black women is because I'm the only one correct.
That's right. That's right.
I hear y'all songs, you and me, and all that love talk, while she abort your babies.
That's right.
While she got you in child support court. While she being taught by the TV to get you locked up and call 911 if you argue with her over how much she spend on the credit card.
You don't see the black woman as a god? This is what our brothers Polite and
you better leave some room between me and you. Alright, you must don't know who you dealing with. Alright. Listen,
and
man.
Brother Natural Tahuti.
Let me tell you something.
They teaching that the black woman is God. What is wrong? Hold up.
Go ahead.
What is wrong with a teaching like that to bring her back up and sit her on her throne?
Let me ask you something else.
Go ahead.
Who else is teaching the black woman she's a god?
The brothers that I named.
You see, that's the problem, Sonetta.
Go ahead.
The problem is that everybody's teaching the black woman that she's a god, but we just don't know. The white man is doing it, the songwriters is doing it, corporate America's doing it. Your black woman carrying a gun bringing you to judges and courts. Your black woman making decisions about your life and your children's life. Everybody's making her a god. Everybody making her the ultimate power and authority in the earth. Everybody's doing it. It ain't just them brothers. They just coming out and using the word, she's a god. But everybody's been making her a god in her ignorance, man. Everybody done did this and following. Where they get it from? Following the white man. Following the white man and his way of life because he's a faggot by nature. So he gonna make the woman a god. He did it in the garden. And here's what's so evil about it, Sonetta. Ain't nobody making the black woman a god because they want to worship her. They making the black woman a god so they can rob her dumb ass.
So, I was contacted by a representative of I.S.U.P.K. via Twitter. I'll find a picture and put it up for y'all so y'all can see them. They was talking about they wanted some more debates. I guess they seen me talking publicly about Polite won the debate. I just wrote them an open letter about the black woman. Because what they don't know is that the black woman has been venerated in the Bible as El Shaddai. El Shaddai is the God with the breast, the goddess, the mother goddess. But I wrote it down on rapgod.wordpress so y'all can check that out. But what I just want to show y'all, since 33,000 BC, Nana could be found venerated, holding her heavy breasts, which was a signal of her fertility as the mother goddess. You find me a male figurine from 33,000 BC, and you can tell me we wasn't venerating the mother goddess. Here go 25,000 BC. That's what I'm telling you. 23,000 BC. And always notice the heavy breasts, and half the time she even holding them. Look at Nana 6,000 BC. Still holding her heavy breasts. There's a Sumerio-Akkadian hymn to Nana that goes, I have heavy breasts in Duduni, I have a beard in Babylon. Still I am Nana. And this is speaking to our androgynous nature, and also how she was being changed from a female deity to a male deity as the patriarchy usurped the matriarchy. But you can find out more about that in Mama Zogbe's book, Mama Wada. But if you want to know about the black woman, she was venerated before anybody was venerated on this earth.
We've been disrespecting the Bible, like the Bible ain't a real archaeological book, when the Bible's the most accurate book on the face of this earth and got better strategy and plans on how to fix black people than any record that's walking around on this earth today.
The Bible is not a book of archaeology. If you go to blackdemographics.com, you'll see that it says 87% of all African Americans are involved in religion. So if the Bible is the answer, then I guess we cool.
And furthermore, we sitting up there looking at the Egyptians like they so great. The Egyptians had us in poverty, man. Starving. Don't you know there was I got archaeology, brother. I told you I've been to Egypt. While everybody's studying about, you know, Akhenaten and the rest of these old gangsters that was running Egypt, you understand, Imhotep, who was chopping up people's bodies, trying to figure out how people work, how the body function. What about us in that poverty we in? Did you know there was projects in Egypt? I bet you your scholars don't tell you that, right? They don't tell you they was building right down below the pyramids of Giza. Right down on the north side, there's projects down there where we was in there starving in poverty, man. Did you know?
So, my man claims there were projects down on the north side of Giza, and we was in there starving, man. Well, let's check out this report on the tombs of the pyramid builders discovered in Giza. An archaeology team led by Dr. Zahi Hawass has discovered several new tombs that belong to the workers who built the pyramids of Khufu and Khafre. This is the first time to uncover tombs like the ones that were found during the 1990s, which belonged to the late 4th and 5th dynasties, said Hawass. When we think of Giza, we tend to think of Giza pyramids. However, while the pyramids were under construction, there was an extensive city on the south side that supported the workers. It included houses, bakeries, magazines, and a hypo-style hall. The system of supporting the workers also included burials for those who died at Giza. These tombs were built beside the King's Pyramid, which indicates that these people were not by any means slaves. If they were slaves, they would not have been able to build their tombs beside their king, said Dr. Hawass. The idea of Giza pyramids being built by slaves is a myth. It has never had any basis in archaeological fact.
אני ללמוד עברית, לדבר לשקור עברית ישראלית, מה חושב עם חכם. מה זה? אני לא מבין מה זה שקור עברית ישראלית, דבר.